Hi there. If you're a person like me who work on the command line more often, you always want to become an administrator. Well, any advice given by veteran Unix and Linux users to new devices, never log in as root. They'll tell you that. In fact, there are some distributions like Ubuntu which does not enable you to log in as root user. Instead, they give you a tool like sudo, right? You'll actually type sudo and you will type in some commands, and more often it'll ask you for a password. You type your password and you get things going. It's a kind of confirmation that you really want to do what you're doing, and so on. If you are a person like me who don't like to use this lifesaver safety net while swimming, you want to just be wild, you just become sudo su minus like this, and now you're a root user. And if you are a root user, you gotta be extremely careful, extremely cautious, because nothing stops you from wreaking havoc on your file system. That's the first thing. The most common example people talk about is the switch called RM-RF kind of switches, right? But you know, RM-RF, lot of key combination. If you're a person like me who also uses tools like MC, Midnight Commander, things get even worse. You can stop a directory tree completely just by 2 keystrokes, F8 and enter. Select a tree like this, and go to any folder. Okay, looks like all the folders are having something here. So for example, I have some folder called patches. So you can just say, I can just press F8, enter. It's asking you whether you want to delete it recursively. You know, sometimes you can even turn this off much faster. And this, once you say this 3 keystrokes, there's no looking back, the entire directory is chopped. So sometimes if you're a root user, you want to safeguard certain files and folders from accidental deletion or accidental modification. How do you do that? Well, you can write protect any files or directories of your choice by using a special utility called chattr. The default Unix permissions do not apply for root user. I guess you know that. The user group others, right? Read, write, execute. They don't apply for root user. They apply for every other user other than root. Once you're logged in as root user, the super user that is, no permissions apply, no Unix permissions apply. Even if you create a file and say no permissions for anybody, as root user you can still go and edit it, you can delete it, you can do whatever you want. Nothing stops root user, right? That's one of the challenges on a Linux or Unix system in general. On most Linux file systems, there are extended attributes available. These are file system specific generally, but many of the Linux compatible file systems have one of these attributes called immutability attribute. I think this was introduced in ext2 file system, and it's been carried forward in various other file systems since then for being compatible with ext2 file system as such. Most of the Linux compliant file system based ext2, btrfs or btrfs you might call it, or reiserfs, xfs, all of them have this bit. So if I have a file and I don't want it to be accidentally deleted, I have some random file in here. Let's select this notes.txt. I don't even know what's there inside it. One of my training notes perhaps. So if I were, let's say, safeguard this file, all I would do is chattr +i. +i stands for enable immutability bit, and say notes.txt. What this effectively means is that this file is now immutable, which means you cannot modify the file, you cannot delete it. Write out RM-F, force delete, notes.txt as root user. I'm a root user right now. You can see it shows the root at right on. Okay, I just did su minus. You can see that. Even as root user, you cannot delete it. You can't even modify this file. You can't even change the timestamp of the file, by the way. By doing a touch notes.txt, you can't set the timestamp. Nothing about this file can be modified. You cannot modify the statistics of the file like timestamp, ownership, permissions. Nothing can be changed. If at all you want to make any changes to this file, you have to turn off the immutability bit by using chattr -i. It's a very safe way to write protect any file or a folder. Make sure that you don't accidentally modify them even as root user. This could be very useful in certain occasions, especially if you're a person like me who works on kernel source tree or general source code folders. Sometimes we end up opening some of these files in text editors, the source files in text editors, and we end up accidentally saving the files. Sometimes it can happen. fast typing, this can happen. And when that happens, what happens is that the timestamp changes, and if the build system depends on those timestamps, it's going to rebuild the entire thing, right? You want to avoid that. You want to make sure that none of these files in a directory tree are modifiable. You want to make sure it works on a directory tree. Let's say I want to safeguard one of these directories and just see if there's any directory that's got a lot of files in it. Let's say procgfs. I think one of these examples I used in one of my kernel trainings. Oh, it's empty. Oh, sorry. Let me just check if there's anything that's useful in here. Test folder. A single file in it. Not very useful. mnt. ext4. It's all blank. Hang on a minute. btrfs. Let me see if that's a source code of btrfs by any chance. Yeah, it's a source code of some tool. Basically, btrfs tool. If all I want to safeguard this entire folder tree, all I would do is I could just say chattr minus capital R. Minus capital R means recursively traverse a directory tree. You can say plus I, and you can also use bpf trace like this. So you can just run this command, and this will basically make sure that the entire directory tree is made immutable. There's a small caveat though. This immutability bit does not work for symbolic links, because the way symbolic links can actually point to non-Linux compliant file system locations. For the reason, for safety reason, symbolic links are not supported. So you'll get errors when you actually have symbolic links in a directory tree. If you want to ignore those errors, it's simply easier to just use minus capital R, small f, and plus I bpf trace if you want to. Now, if you try to delete this tree, let's try this rm-rf bpf trace as root user. Operation not permitted. You cannot go to bpf trace and change any file in here. Forget changing. You cannot create a file in here. Just try to say cat greater than a.txt. Operation not permitted. So this entire directory is now write protected. You cannot change anything inside it. So all these files are like frozen. If not, you want to make any modification to these files or folders after that, if you want to delete this directory tree, you have to undo it by running this command chattr minus I switch. This is a very useful feature. chattr actually provides lots of other attributes. You can have features like encrypt the file on disk and decrypt it on demand, or you can also compress files. So many options are there. You can find that out by using man chattr. All the different special attributes supported by your file system listed in here. There are some of these examples. For example, you can use plus A. Enable plus A, you can only append to the file. You cannot open it for write mode. This is useful for logs. Mostly if you want to safeguard or secure harden a log file, log files must only be appended to. You don't want to open them and overwrite any contents, right? So for that particular purpose, you can enable this feature. You have all of these files here. You have this cvit for compressing data on disk dynamically. Not all file systems support it. Varies. So different file systems will implement them differently, as noted in here. Yeah, all of these features in here. But the most useful feature I found with chattr is the plus I switch, as you see here. A file with the I attribute cannot be modified, it cannot be deleted or renamed. No link can be created to this file. Most of the file's metadata cannot be modified. The file cannot be opened in write mode. Only the superuser or a process possessing cap Linux immutable can set or clear this attribute. Only after you clear this attribute, you can make any modification. So if you want to write protect a file or a folder, you know how to do it. Just remember chattr plus I path or a folder or a file. If you do it for an entire directory, also use a minus capital R switch, and then you can say plus I and a folder tree. Hope you found this information useful. If you have any queries, please feel free to comment, so I will answer them in the comment section. Thank you very much. Hope to meet you in future videos.